And we're recording, so go ahead.
Okay, so I'll call our 23rd meeting of the Animal Control Committee to order, and we'll roll call.
Bloom? Here. Pringle?
Here.
Hernandez? Van Arden?
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. First item of business is approval of minutes.
Let's approve the minutes.
Second.
Or moved.
Yeah, moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion?
Can I make a comment about minutes?
Sure.
Again, being new at this, the minutes are fairly brief, which is okay.
Correct. Yes.
And we don't do anything that's probably ever require any kind of detail. But when is a more detailed triggered in terms of minutes, like if there's a particular discussion or whatever? Is it from normal procedure just, because I don't see city council minutes, you know, like that.
I would say city council minutes are a little bit more detailed.
Okay. Understandably so.
I think it depends on, I think it's a depends question.
Okay.
And it depends on
Okay.
the discussion, things like that, the
Okay.
topics.
Okay, just wondering.
We certainly want to make sure, or if we make a decision, that gets captured.
And especially, correct, and especially for motions too.
Right.
Motions do have to be verbatim
Okay.
as well.
They're adequate as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You don't need, minutes don't have to be detailed, unless, like Bob said, Tom, I'm gonna make up names.
That's what we call it.
I'm
Jim or
Well,
something.
no, it's Tom, I know it's Tom.
whoever, this guy, yeah.
So obviously the meeting's recorded, you don't need the minutes, but I'm thinking in terms of some of our meetings have been recorded. Or any meeting.
All of our meetings have been
They have been?
recorded,
Oh.
correct. So
Audibly, but not video.
not video,
Gotcha.
but,
Okay, gotcha.
and they are available and archived on our website.
And you did tell me that the other day.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Yep.
I have so many things.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, good refresher.
Any further discussion? All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Right. Okay, so our next item is unfinished business, and we want to talk about the draft ordinance for animal control. So, right off the bat, I want to apologize that it's taken so long for us to get back together again and for this process going so slowly. But what I want to do first, since we haven't met in 6 or 7 weeks, I don't remember exactly how long it's been, is to give you an update on what's going on in between there. So, between that and now. So what you may remember is that at our, and we refer to the minutes for this information, is at our last meeting, we agreed we were going to go forward with our recommendation for changes to the animal control code to the city, in spite of the fact that it appears the county is trying to do something with their code, so we decided not to worry about trying to integrate with them or coordinate with them, but we wanted to get ours done. And one of the drivers was that, at least at that point in time, our commission from the council was for 2 years for the committee to exist, and that kind of runs out at the end of this fiscal year, so we're hoping to be able to get done by then. Okay, so the next action item that was supposed to occur after our meeting then was that we were going to make sure that the last of the tweaks that we wanted to make to the code were included, which I finished all of those up. And I sent it off to the chief to get his review. And the chief's been a very busy guy, and he and I touched base a couple of times, and he was hopeful to be able to get us feedback back. That didn't happen for a number of weeks. But then there was a coffee with the chief at Rembrandt's. I don't remember the exact date of that. I think it was early June, if I remember.
The chief meets for coffee also?
Yes, well, at least this one time. I think he scheduled them. It's not a weekly thing like it is with the mayor, but I caught it. And so I went down to Rembrandt's early in an effort to try to catch him, and I managed to have like about 2 minutes with him before the rest of the crowd showed up. So I asked him about this, and he immediately responded. And he said the big issue that was a concern to him was that in the code that we had drafted, that it put the chief of police in the position of basically, with respect to dangerous dogs, of judge, jury, and executioner. And he didn't like having all 3 of those responsibilities placed so heavily on them. So I said, okay, well, that's a big help, and to get that information. So the next thing that we did after that was to try to get, well, first of all, I came back after that and wondering, since I knew we had done a fair amount of work on this, what was said in other codes around us that I could make a comparison with. So our existing one split the responsibility between IHS and the court as I mentioned, our draft basically split it between an authorized officer, like a law enforcement officer, the chief, IHS, and a designee that could be made by them. The existing county code uses IHS and the sheriff. The proposed one we saw includes the IHS as the animal control agency and introduces the court. The Idaho State Code says the court. The Boise Code uses an authorized officer, law enforcement officer, humane officer, chief of police, IHS, and potentially a third-party hearing officer. So I'm not trying to go into detail of that, but just talk about the fact that there were differences between the five. There's no consistency. So I was a little stuck about what to propose for that. And so I felt that the next thing to do was to talk to Victor, the city attorney, and get a reading from him about what he thought. Well, that also turned into a situation where we had logistic issues. It took us about 3 weeks before we could get together with Victor. We had a Zoom meeting with him last Monday. Just so you know, Victor now, as city attorney, keeps office hours with the city every Monday. And the first Monday that we tried to contact was Memorial Day.
Holiday.
The next Monday was the makeup day for all the things that didn't happen on Memorial Day. So we had to wait next a week after that before we could get a window with him. But I was able to schedule a Zoom meeting for him, and this is now last 10 days ago on Monday. And Cheryl joined me on that. And so we talked through it with Victor, which turned out to be pretty helpful. And his recommendation was that we focus in on using the court, because that's a good independent organization. It's got some authorities and capabilities.
My idea was just to put it all on Victor, and he didn't like that.
So following that meeting with Victor, Cheryl went back and kind of tweaked it. Thank you. That was a good word. To adjust that. So the newest version that you got, if you didn't see any particular changes, that was pretty much it. Was the change so that in the case of dangerous dogs and potentially dangerous dogs, is that, the final adjudication designates the court as opposed to
court of competent jurisdiction. That's pretty bad.
For your information. It's really the only change that we're doing so far. So where we are now is, I think we're in a good position, basically to push this forward. My suggestion is that we send copies of the revised draft to the chief, to Victor with a note in it that we reflected the changes he suggested, and to Tiffany at IHS, so they'll basically all see the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not ask them particularly for input, but invite comments if they want to share them, so that our timeline isn't driven by them anymore.
Right.
And then go ahead with setting up the public meeting, the open house, whatever the appropriate thing to do there, for us to share this with the community and get the next stage of feedback, which there may be some. So I guess I would talk to Holly about getting the time and date for that setup, and then working backwards from that. I would take on putting together an outline for a presentation to them, and I thought about this a little bit. My goal would not be to present to them in detail each aspect of the code or read through it page by page, but basically to first focus on what the process would be, because I know as soon as anybody's got an objection, they're going to say, well, what do I do? So I explain to them, the public meeting process, and then the hearing before the council, and so on, where that process is going on the outset. Then I talk about what motivated us to do this, what were the things we were trying to address, like enforceability, for example, and concerns that were shared with us early on from both Tiffany and the chief. Mm-hmm. And then touch on the various specifics, but like I said, for me, not to spend too much detail, I would hope that committee members, especially Cheryl, would be there, so that if specific questions came up about, well, what does this mean, and who does this, we could answer.
This is the open house you're talking about.
Correct, for the open house, right?
Yeah, the committee,
And then I'm guessing that, again, Holly, you probably know better, is there a time frame that we want to allow after the open house to receive feedback and to work on feedback before we go before the council? Are we looking like a month or something?
I would say maybe a month, 3 weeks.
I'm sorry?
Like 3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay.
So I guess once we adjourn, I can look on calendars, provide some dates to you guys, see what dates.
Yeah, if you could lead us with a
Absolutely.
framework for the time schedule.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And as we know that, I was going to ask the committee members as well if they have any points that they think would be important to bring up in this initial presentation to the community for me to include in the presentation, that I could do that. So
So the question, just Bob, so you're aware, the meeting that we had with Victor, his concerns were twofold. One, the word potentially dangerous dogs. When he skimmed through it, he said he did not see a definition. So I pointed out to him that in the section of 457, there is a definition. So we did not break out a definition in the definition section. And then he wanted to know where I came up with this. And of course, my smart ass remark, well, we're on tape, was, oh, well, I just pulled it out of my hat, you know, and I said, well,
Something else, probably.
so what we did was we pulled this from the Boise City Code. And so, and that's exactly what we did, is this is directly taken from Boise City Code. And so since IHS enforces Boise City as well as Eagle City, there's no point in trying to reinvent the wheel and have the code enforcement officers try to figure out, oh, well, which city am I in? Where am I enforcing? So they have consistent codes that they're enforcing wherever they go. And so Victor liked that. You know, consistency is the key to not having officers out there trying to figure out, you know, they've got a card, oh, well, I'm here, so I'm doing this, I'm here, I'm doing that. So they have consistent codes that they're enforcing wherever they are, because, you know, they cross jurisdictions. So that was easy for him to understand, you know, keep it simple for the attorneys. They like that. So that was easy for him to understand.
That's the first thing, right?
Huh?
That's the first thing you said, didn't you think?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the
So the second one was the enforcement section was I left out the section, you know, who's going to enforce this, and that was the concern that the police chief had, because he didn't get back to us on, you know, what's your problem? So now that he got back to us on what the issue was, I added a sentence, a phrase in there, or court of competent jurisdiction, because, you know, I wasn't sure how to phrase the enforcement section. And so, you know, I kept going back and forth. What do I do? Because I needed Victor's input on what to do. And so, because that was the problem that the prosecutor had with the current code, Eagle City Code, because it's not enforceable. And so they don't know where to go to write the code, you know, write the citations. And so they needed to know where to go. So now I've given them a place to go. And the court is
given a place to go?
the officers that write the citation.
Any officer, not just police officers.
Yeah, any competent, anybody who writes a citation.
So Tom, when you're saying about the chief, I was concerned about his officers being judge and jury and whatever else.
Yeah.
Did you ask him to elaborate what he meant about that?
Well, basically, the concern was, well, I guguess, the simplify it the most was, what he pointed out to me in our review, this is, he's a dog lover, and so he doesn't particularly want to be in the position of making a decision on whether a particular dog has to be with them or not.
Yeah.
So, and so I took it from that perspective, but then I also took it from the perspective of kind of, you know, division of labor, if you want to put it that way, so that the same person isn't put in a position of control the whole process.
So just from my layman's perspective, I didn't see anything here, or the other stuff where that I got the sense an Eagle police officer would be responsible for deciding where the dog got put down or not.
No, but in the part about the
Code
dangerous
enforcement.
dogs and quote unquote, it does specifically identify the chief as one of the.
Okay, so can we look at that minute, because
So now it goes to court.
yeah, right. No, I understand, I have no problem with that. So I've got this, this is the, well, this is mine that I made my notes on.
Okay, so
I know that's it, but.
now all the previous ones,
Right.
throw them out.
I still like to see the language in this, so I can.
Just for comparison?
Yes, I have a reason for doing this, so for my benefit, if you wouldn't mind indulging me here. So, just essentially want to see where it defines the chief of police or the police is deciding whether to put the dog down or not. The under enforcement, right, which was H on our program, H, page 11. here it says authorized officer, et cetera. So we're further down than that after the dog has been determined.
What section?
Well, that's what we're asking.
Oh, I know, page numbers don't mean anything to me.
Okay, so let's see.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Um,
457.
Here on N, it says investigation hearing notice, the animal shelter director, chief of police, or designee. That's N. I'm reading down through that.
Okay, so, yeah, then you get to, okay, so 30. So there's, yeah, chief of, in Q, the chief of police requesting writing to the chief of police director and POB, and then
It says request in writing to chief of police or the animal shelter designee. So there's the option there. It doesn't exclude the police, but it doesn't mean that police, what I'm getting is this, dog issues happen after hours, okay? And a sense I have, a concern I have, based on, without going into detail, just experiences, that the police can be reluctant to answer a dog barking call after hours. The county has answered them before, but my feeling is that whether a person is a dog lover or not, if the ordinance is the ordinance and the police, their part of their job is to enforce ordinances, then it would seem to me that, I don't mean deciding on putting the dog down, but I just want to ensure that the police are going to participate willingly in this, and that's why I was hoping the chief would give you a definite answer about that.
oh, in addition to this.
There's
Okay,
officers,
so right
yeah,
now,
after hours, when the IHS people are not working and no one else is, it's at nighttime, if the Eagle Police would take an active part in enforcing a dog barking dog ordinance after hours. And I just want to make sure that we have a clear understanding from them, because otherwise, some of this stuff, it's like words on paper, and enforceability is, I mean, there's a, it's unclear who would enforce that. I mean, barking dogs don't happen just in broad daylight when everyone's working. I mean, they happen after hours. And so that's all I wanted,
So a dog barking or a dog barking call is going to be taken in order. It's not an urgent call. It's not an emergency call.
I understand.
Okay.
But if you're the person dealing with a barking dog, at some point it does become an urgent call. And I just want to make sure the police are actively involved in
They
the
are.
ordinance.
They
And
are.
enforce the ordinance. Will you say that, Cheryl? I want to know that.
Where is that? Do you know where it states that if there was a barking dog that,
Well, the Chief Wilkie has already said that they will take a barking dog call.
Okay. So,
Dispatch will take a
Right.
barking dog call after hours. IHS has said they will take a barking dog call. But it is not an emergency call. Barking dogs are not emergency calls, Bob, in any jurisdiction, in anywhere in the country. I can guarantee you that.
well, I could
Bob,
be legalistic here and say, well, define emergency call.
a barking dog is not an emergency call.
Sure.
An attacking dog is an emergency
I
call.
understand. I understand. We're talking about a nuisance
So-
call. I put it in the same category as someone in your neighborhood is playing loud music against.
It's not an emergency call.
Well, but it's a nuisance call. And
It's a nuisance call, but it is not an emergency call. They're not, Bob, they're not gonna make it a priority call.
I'm not,
Let's move on.
I'm not gonna deal with this, Cheryl. I don't approach people that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna accept it from you, okay? I'm asking a legitimate question here, especially.
And I'm giving you a legitimate answer. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Hey, I'm sorry. I am not gonna be treated like I'm an idiot. Okay, I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
All right, sorry.
Bob, you're being unreasonable, and I am not gonna do with this. You're here because you don't like barking dogs. I'm done. I'm out of here.
Well, you're correct. I don't like a dog that's
Okay.
misbehaving.
can we take 5 minutes?
No,
No? Okay.
I'm done. I am done.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Goodbye.
Thanks, Cheryl. So we don't have a quorum.